Andrew for putting together the event today. Thank you very much, Andrew and Rachel, for chairing it. I think it's been a really magnificent day, actually. Yeah. Really, I just want to acknowledge really all those miners, their partners, their families, who fought that heroic year-long struggle, and to all those activists in Essex, some here today, some who've passed away, and supported them throughout the year. You know, they're heroes, all of them, absolute heroes. I just wanted to make a couple of, if you just bear with me for a little while, I'm sorry. I just want to say that this strike was fought by our rulers as a class war. You know, it was an open class war, it was a naked class war. Everything people have said today has shown that's the case. You know, integration of all arms of the state into this battle was absolutely obvious. It was obvious at the time. It was obvious at the time, and it's obvious now as well. The police, the judiciary, the welfare system, you know, the secret state, even the nationalised industries like the CEGB, all working together to break the miners. And the ruling narrative at the time was openly hostile to the miners. You know, described the miners as the enemy within, as it was this sort of fight for law and order against mob rule. I remember it very well. But this narrative has slightly changed, I think, in recent years. You know, we've seen that some of the programmes on recently. You know, the strike now is portrayed as a tragedy. You know, nobody right, nobody wrong. You know, just different points of view. And the miners were the unfortunate victims of that tragedy, perhaps unjustly treated. But you know, our narrative is different to that. That's not our narrative, because the miners were not victims. They were not victims. They were fighters. They fought. They were defeated, but they fought. And that's all the difference in the world. And they were changed by that struggle as well. They were let down, yes. They were betrayed. Absolutely, they were betrayed. But they consciously fought, and they had the support of many, many working class people in this room, around Essex, even Tory Essex. They had the support of many, many working class people. And that's something our rulers want to bury. They don't want people to know that. Because, you know, but that's the real story, that's the hidden history, and we mustn't allow it to be buried. I just want to say as well that I just want to read a couple of things, really, if you don't mind. The first is from the great campaigning journalist Paul Foot. You know, he's Matt's dad. He was a fantastic fella. And he just wrote this. One of the many, many great things he wrote about the strike. He wrote this. He said, "There was change all about. In the strength of their collective action, people felt a new confidence in themselves and in the people around them. The ideas and prejudices that have been grafted onto them, like barnacles, were blasted away. The change in them quickly translated into changes in the way they behaved towards one another. In tradition, and in fact, the miner had been master in his home. The role of the miner's wife was to feed her man, bring up her children, and keep her mouth shut. Suddenly, the most unlikely area, the idea of women's liberation became a reality. It became a reality. Whole communities were suddenly run by women. The strongest, most energetic and most forceful of the support groups were made up almost entirely of women. This led to new relationships in the community and in the home, to new uncertainties perhaps, but to a new respect." Absolutely, that's the hidden history of the strike. You know, fighting back changes you. It changes people. It changed the miners. It changed their families. It changed people here too. It changed people in Essex too. And that's a memory that stays with us to this day. I just want to quote one other person as well, if you don't mind. In the course of my researches, I've been interviewing people. Some of the people in this room I've been interviewing as well. One man from Harlow, a guy called Mike. Some people might know him. He can't be here today, unfortunately. He's demonstrating for Palestinian freedom, absolutely. But I thought his testimony was quite powerful, and I just want to read out a couple of bits from his testimony, if you don't mind. Mike said of the strike, "I think one of the most important things is that you use the strike, you use it as an example. You use it in defence of solidarity, in defence of active solidarity, active picketing, mass picketing, workers talking to each other. You know, all those things happened. They happened. A lot of us were there. We saw it happen. We spoke to the people involved in doing it. It is real. It's real. The strike was a vindication of the idea that workers can struggle. And even in defeat, they were magnificent. It was a cry of defiance against everything that we are seeing now. Against corporatism, against privatisation, against the throwing of people onto the scrap heap. It was an assertion of working class culture, a practical example of how women's liberation is related to working class struggle. You saw a massive change, an incredible change in miners' lives. You saw miners who at one time might have been quite backward in their ideas towards sexuality, were completely won over by the fact that solidarity was being delivered to them by gay people. It was a festival of the exploited. It was a festival of the oppressed. There's no doubt about it. But it's very important that we're sober as well. we're not there simply to be cheerleaders and to pretend that defeats didn't happen. It was a defeat. It was a shocking defeat, and it's had consequences, as people have said, up to this day. But one day, one day we'll avenge that defeat. No struggle is ever wasted. A struggle as big as that, as the lessons of it and the power of it, they're banked for all of us. They're part of our memory, and we'll use those memories at some point to forge struggles that win. That was what Mike was saying. I think he's absolutely right. So that's why I want to, just to justify this conference. Conferences like this are so important because we need to keep telling our stories. We need to tell our stories of the strike and other struggles too, because the past, the past is not dead. The past is not even the past. The past is the present, and it's part of the fight for the future. Our rulers know that. They know that very well. They want to keep their stories. They want their stories to dominate. But, so we want to keep our stories alive. And we want to learn from it. In academic circles, it's called forging usable pasts. Well, our usable past is it's possible to fight back. It's possible that all working class people can fight back, and we can support each other in that fight back. But we need to be organised too. We need to be organised at a rank and file level in the community, as we've all shown today, and in the workplace, as Bill Hodge and his comrades have shown. It's a very powerful lesson. So we don't have to rely on our so-called leaders, who, frankly, we've all known they've got their own agenda. If we want to win next time, we have to organise, because there will be a next time. We are certain of that. It may not be the miners next time leading the fight, but the spirit of the miners is our inspiration, and it infuses every struggle of working class people fighting for a better world. None of us know what's going to happen in the future, but we know that the situation is dire for all of us. And so that future will involve big class struggles on the scale of the miners, and maybe even bigger than the scale of the miners too. So that's our fight. So on to the next struggle. Thanks very much, comrades.